Aloha artist, Miss Maggie here. Today we are going to take what we learned last week about patterns in nature and how trees grow and use that with a tree that you know from your own yard or neighborhood. So look around and find a tree that you know. We are also going to paint today, and I'm hoping, if it works for you, to take your watercolor paints outside, okay? If that doesn't work, at least draw your tree outside. Sound good? I can't wait. Here are the supplies that you're going to need today. First of all, since we're going to be making art outside, you are going to need some sort of clipboard. Mine is a board with some clips attached. Or you can use a little bit of tape that you'll be able to peel off your art later. Doesn't have to be blue, but this sort of tape works really well. But any sort of tape you can pull off, or a clothespin, or a binder clip, or a chip clip, or something that keeps your art from blowing away. And you have a nice hard surface for painting on. And remember, we will be drawing and painting, so don't use a book or something that wouldn't be good to get paint on, right? Okay, so your board is something you're going to need, and then paper. We'll be painting, so get a small piece of watercolor paper from your packet of art supplies. Remember, use the paper that has some nice texture to it. Okay, and because you're going to be gathering all your art supplies here, figuring out what our steps are, and then taking everything outside, we need a piece of paper to write your checklist. This paper can be lined, it can be blank, but it's not one of your art papers. It's some other scrap or useful paper that is not for drawing, but is for writing a good checklist on. So, watercolor paper, checklist paper. Then, of course, since we'll be drawing, you'll need a pencil. You'll want a Sharpie and an eraser too. And then finally, because we'll be painting, you will want your watercolors. You will want a napkin, and you'll want a paintbrush. And of course, you will want a container for some water. I like containers that are a little bit wider so that it's not easy for it to spill. Think about something that will work outside, if that's possible for you. And so, with that, these are your supplies. Your board for drawing and painting on with some way of holding your art to the board. A piece of watercolor paper, a checklist paper, pencil, Sharpie, eraser, and your painting supplies, watercolors, paintbrush, paper towel, and cup of water, and one more thing that would be useful. All these supplies, it's a lot to carry. So I have some sort of pencil bag or Tupperware container or piece of recycling. I can put all my supplies in here. Well, maybe not my big cup of water, but I can put a lot of these things all together, and it makes carrying it outdoors easier. Okay, so go get those supplies now. So, we don't need all of those supplies right to start off. Right now, what you need is your checklist paper and a pencil. With that, we can make our checklist for going outside, and when we're out there, we'll know what all the steps are for this art project, okay? So, I have my checklist paper, and I'm going to label it Tree Painting Checklist. So the first thing you will be doing today is that you are going to go outside and find that tree pattern that we learned last week in a tree in your yard or neighborhood. Doesn't have to be a large tree, but look for that pattern. Look here as I find the pattern in this small tree. Parallel, right there. And then the lines of the trunk start growing apart. Do you see where to put in the V? I see it right here. And I can keep going parallel over here, but then over here, I can also go parallel and then apart, And ooh, there's a couple of V's going on. Here's one there, and I can go parallel. Ooh, I'm gonna put in a V right here too. And I see right here, parallel, parallel, apart, apart, and put in the V. You don't need a large tree in order to find the pattern, and I could keep going and draw the whole thing. But what I really want to know is what tree you discover the pattern in. Let's draw just a little bit of it as a reminder. Remember, we start with parallel, parallel. That's how we begin. And then those two parallel lines, they go apart, apart, and we put in the V. Oh, look, there's two new parallel lines. Parallel, parallel, apart, apart, put in the V. That's what you're going to be looking for outside in your yard or neighborhood. So when you find that tree pattern, draw that beautiful tree. Look for all the details that make that tree unique. I notice that this tree has a trunk that curves to the side. It still has two parallel lines that go that way and then apart, apart. And I put in the V and I keep noticing how those branches are parallel and then they go apart, and I find those V's to put in. I'm just looking at the tree to know, well, which way is the branch going? Where do they separate? How skinny are they getting? Where do they overlap, or where is there another one that comes out? And then I think about, well, how am I going to put the leaves in there? Where is the canopy of the tree? Where can I put that in? And what other details? This one, I liked it because it had ferns growing on it. I thought that was a lot of fun. So I'm putting those ferns in too. Some of the leaves are really close to me, and so I'm making those have more details, and there's some branches that are coming back out of the trees. Other parts of the leaves really hang down low. I am looking at all the details that I notice, those little ferns, the roots sticking out of the ground. All of that is going into my drawing. What details do you think you might find in the tree that you choose to draw? Draw all those details that go with your tree pattern. Next, you are going to take your drawing and you're going to Sharpie it. Make all those beautiful lines show up big and bold, and erase the pencil lines so that it is nice and clear. Got that? After that, we are going to prepare to paint. If you didn't bring your water outside, if you didn't bring your paints outside, maybe you need to fill up your water. Make sure that you have everything you need in step number 3. And then, after you're all ready to paint, that is when we begin to paint. But we want to stop and think, because I have 3 steps for you that are going to make any painting that you make turn out amazing, as long as you remember these 3 steps. Okay, so let's write them down. 4, we're going to paint, but we need to stop and think. I'm going to underline that. Then we have 1, 2, 3. So when you are going to paint, you need to stop and you need to think. You need to think, where are you going to start on your artwork? Look at your artwork, go, where am I going to paint? If you think about what spot you're going to be putting paint on first, then you have a plan. Once you've found where, then you can think about what color are you going to put there. So, have you been doing these hand motions with me? We need to stop and think. Do that with me. Stop and think. We're going to think about where we're going to put the paint, and then we're going to think about what color. I go like that because in our palette we have so many beautiful colors to think of. So it's like, oh, which one of those? Or which ones do I want to mix together in order to make our amazing art? So what color? And then finally, what stroke? So stop and think. Where, what color, and then what stroke? Check. How are you holding your paintbrush? Are you holding it like a pencil? Are you holding it by the silver part? Are you holding it so that it is tall, so that you have a nice tip? Are you wetting it and giving it a little hug before you begin, so that tip is nice and happy? And so if you hold your brush tall, you'll have a very thin line. If you hold it this way, it'll be thick and you'll have less control, but maybe it's good for filling in areas. So one more time with me. Stop and think. Where, what color, what stroke? Every time you get to a new part of your painting, do that. Stop and think. Where are you working next? What color are you putting there? And what stroke are you using? Keep doing that and you will paint with control. You will also notice so much more about what colors are in your tree. For instance, look at the bark. Is it really just brown? Is it all the same brown? I added purple, blue, and orange, and some areas are dark, so I'm adding even more dark colors to them. Notice where things are light and dark. Notice where to put those light and dark areas. Notice where the leaves have a lot of yellow and sunshine shining on them, and use a lot of yellow there, maybe just a little bit of blue or green mixed in with them. And notice where it's really dark, maybe instead of green it's mostly blue. Look closely. Where are you going to paint? What colors? And what stroke is going to help the color go where you want it to go? Paint carefully around little details and paint in those little details with care. Put in contrasting colors. Dark areas will make the light areas really stand out. But the tree that you're painting is different than my tree. What makes that tree one of a kind? Show us that. Notice what makes it so amazing and paint that in. And whatever else can be seen in the picture, like the ground, are there any roots on the ground? Stop and think. What else is needed to make your picture absolutely amazing? Show us the beauty of your tree. Okay, and then the final thing after you paint is our reflection question. And clean up. We haven't even made our art yet, so I'm not going to tell you the reflection question yet. Instead, I'm going to say, write down that you need to do the reflection question and to clean up on your list so that you can remember after you've had your wonderful experience drawing and painting outside to come back in, watch the last tiny bit of this video and think about your reflection question. So for now, let's just check over our list. You have your checklist here. Did you write it all down? That's your job. Write down this checklist and then bring it outside with you. Okay, I have that. I have my paper. I have my pencil, Sharpie, eraser. I have my paints ready to go soon as my drawing is done. And I'm going to go find a beautiful tree to paint. Okay, I'll see you out there. Artists, how was your experience drawing and painting a tree outside? I hope you had fun. Did you remember to clean everything up? You don't want to forget any of your important art supplies outside. Double check that you have everything. So here is your reflection question. How do you feel while making art outdoors? What feelings do you have in here while you do that? Also, what is another idea for making art outside that you have? I would love to know. Now remember, you have a beautiful picture to take a photo of and share with your teacher and with me so that we can celebrate your amazing artwork. And I can't wait to make art with you next time. See you soon.